If you've got Bibles there, and you should have on your table, you can follow on your phone if you like to do it. I want to read just a few verses from 2 Samuel chapter 23. If you were on track, you read these yesterday. If you didn't, you're going to get to them soon. And so it's about David's mighty warriors. It's page 331, 331 in the Bibles on the tables. 2 Samuel chapter 23. And we're just going to read a tiny part. So 2 Samuel chapter 23, we're going to pick up at verse 13. So 2 Samuel chapter 23, pick up verse 13, page 331 in the church Bibles. And it says in verse 13, during harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief warriors came down to David at the cave of Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." So the 3 mighty warriors broke through the Philistine lines, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and carried it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out before the Lord. "Far be it from me, Lord, to do this," he said. "Is it not the blood of men who went at the risk of their lives?" And David would not drink it. Such were the exploits of the 3 mighty warriors. Don't know what you thought when you read that. You thought, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Or if you were confused, or if you read it very quickly and just thought, wow, I don't really know what that's about. I came back to this. It's a story I've liked for a few years since a friend of mine, Dai Hankey, wrote a book called The Hardcore about these 30 men. And then I invited him to come speak at Headley Park a few years back. Some of you were there at a conference we were running. And I actually re-listened to the talk and reread the chapter yesterday and contacted Dai all at once to say how much I'd appreciated his ministry in this. So this is shamelessly ripped off some of his thoughts, but they'll bless you. And if you didn't understand this story, they might help you. So the cave where David was when he was on the run from Saul. Do you remember that in 1 Samuel? David's life. He was prepared, he prospered, he plummeted. This is in the phase of preparation. And the cave at points had up to 400 people living in it. My primary school was 300, so I sort of imagine that a bit, plus a few more. It's a big group, isn't it? So this morning, about 100 of us in church, 4 times that number crowded into a cave. And Di pointed out just how unsavory it must have been living in there with 400 men. And the men themselves were all outlaws and outcasts. They were all people with problems. They weren't people that were settled or had life easy or straightforward. They were often on the run or in a situation where they had nowhere else to go. But here's the thing. They'd heard there was a king in waiting who would accept them as they were. Men who were broken, men who were battered down, men who had no place to be. And there was a cave. And in that cave was a king. And in that king was a man who could rescue and restore and redeem the most broken of lives. And 400 of them at points gathered around King David. But do you see the place where the Philistines now were, the enemy of Israel at that time? They were in Bethlehem. It's a place we know well, isn't it? Because of the Christmas story. It's also the place where David was when he was called to be king. And now it's full of the enemy. And David is obviously in this cave, surrounded by 400 smelly men, and thinking, well, I could really do with here, and you might feel like it this evening on a warm evening, no more than that a glass of cold water would just hit the spot. And he remembers the well from his childhood, and he lets out this cry. It's a sort of strange longing. He says, oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem. And he just says it. It's amazing, isn't it? It just longs for that one thing. That's what I need to quench my thirst, he thinks. I think probably not really expecting anyone's going to go and do it for him. This is one of the things you say, when you feel desperate for something. I could really do with a holiday in Barbados. Do you know what I mean? I'm not expecting that to happen anytime soon. But you sometimes feel like that, don't you? Maybe not at the moment. Could do with an ice bath. I'm not asking for that either. But, sometimes we get these longings. I think it's where David is at the moment. He's just feeling far from home, stuck in a cave. Actually, he's not that far away. He's about 20 miles away. How far is it from here to Weston? Is that about 20 miles? So it's about that sort of a distance. So enough. If someone said to me right now, would you walk to Weston and back and get me a bottle of water from the garage? I'm not going. Do you know what I mean? But these guys, they do. Here's the second point that Dai made that I thought was wonderful. There may well have been hundreds of people in the cave. We don't know exactly how many were there in that season. And Dai makes this point. He said there were only 3 close enough to their king to hear the cry of his heart. Only 3 close enough to the king to hear the cry of his heart. I think sometimes our faith gets very academic. Sometimes our walk with Jesus gets very dry. I wonder, hand on heart, can you and I say right now in this place, I'm close enough to the king, my king, to hear the cry of his heart? Shouldn't that be a longing for all of us? When I first became a Christian, I was like 17 years old, and there used to be a song where the lyrics were, what is on your heart? Show me what to do. Let me know your will, and I will follow you. When I first became a Christian, I used to sing that. Above my bed, I used to have a sign that said, Lord, help me make the most of the opportunities you give to me today. It was the first thing I saw. I had a slopey attic room. It was the first thing I saw when I woke up. Help me make the most of the opportunities you give me today. I wonder, church, are we close enough to hear the cry of our King's heart? Do we even expect to hear him? Or have we lost that vital connection with our King? But these men hadn't. And the fact they're 20 miles away, and there's a whole army of Philistines between them and what their king wants, doesn't deter them. They break through enemy lines. We don't know if they did it by stealth, sneaked in, or if they just killed every Philistine that got in the way. They just decided this is what we're going to do. 3 of us are going to go and get that water the king wants. We're going to all go 20 miles there, 20 miles back, and we're going to give it to him. And so they do that. But I guess the big twist in the tale is what happens at the end, isn't it? You think David might at least be a bit grateful, wouldn't you? These guys have put themselves out a 40-mile round trip on foot through enemy territory and back. David actually says they risked their own lives. Did you see that? It wasn't like it was just a long walk. It wasn't like a kind of almost double marathon. This was somewhere with genuine danger. And yet when they get back, David, they give it to him and he refuses to drink it. Did you notice that? And instead, he pours it out on the ground. Now, in many circumstances, that would seem rude, wouldn't it? If you're around someone's house for dinner and they served you something wonderful, what they thought it was, and you scraped it onto the floor, that's impolite. This in some ways seems worse, doesn't it? These people haven't just cooked or made something nice. They brought something precious and at a high cost to themselves. And David just does that, and it's all over the floor. Is it that he's profoundly ungrateful? Doesn't seem to be at all, does it? Look at what he says. He says he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out. Here's the key words. Before the Lord. Far be it from me, Lord, to do this, he said. Is this not the blood of men who went at the risk of their lives? And David would not drink it because he devoted it to a higher purpose. It was almost as if the ground was an altar. And he took this gift from his men that was meant for him. And he said, I am not worthy of this. This is too much for me. That you would risk your lives for me, for this is not right. But there's one it's worth to risk your lives from. And I'm going to devote this to him. I'm going to pour all of it out. We've seen that devoting again and again in different ways in the books we've been reading. In a sense, he devotes this water to the Lord. He doesn't drink one drop. He doesn't keep any of it for himself. In a sense, it's too precious. He pours it out till it's all gone. And he offers it to the Lord. It's another act of worship in the life of King David. It's another moment where he says, I'm not the ultimate king. There is one that is greater than me, and he is worthy, and I am not. And brothers and sisters, that's the spirit in which we gather. He's worthy, and we're not. He's worthy of our worship and our praise and our adoration. He's worthy of our hearts. He's worthy of our ears, that we would be attentive to the cry of his heart. Because, brothers and sisters, he wants to use us in the advance of his kingdom. And he wants to pour out his love upon us, that we would know how loved we are, that we'd hear the cry of his heart for us. One who loves like no other. One who's for us every moment of every single day. One who will never forsake or abandon us. One who is worthy. And he's set his love on you.